Okay, good afternoon. Again, my name is Carl Nafuente. I'm the director of the HIFE College Planning Program. It's my privilege to be able to host this afternoon our topic, which is marketing HIFE College Planning. Before I get into specifics on how we believe you can market the program, one of the things that I always like to do and help people prepare in terms of understanding marketing, especially a program that may be new to you. You know, when I look at myself and I look at our agency when we got involved with Institute 6 years ago, one of the things that we decided to do was implement college planning in our practice, similar to like all of you here that are on the webinar. But what helped us out was understanding a couple of things. The first thing that I looked at prior to going out there really marketing the program and going full-fledged is I first wanted to identify, is there a need for college or education planning? And so I had to recognize and really grasp and see, is there really a need for this? And so if you don't believe there's a need, then it's going to be very difficult for you to market the program. And so you have to figure a way to really sell out, buy into the idea, and recognize there is a need for college planning. Part of that is looking at what's happening in your own environment with education, with students, etc. Once you start to see that college planning is a necessity and there is a need, the second thing you want to look at, again, prior to marketing it, is understanding, is there a solution? Is this something that you can really provide other families and helping them guide them through this process? And if you believe the answer is yes, which I believe all of you would agree to the first two, yes, you believe there's a need. Yes, you believe there's a solution. And I say that because you've gotten certified. You've attained your certification. You're on this webinar. So that tells me you believe there's a need. You believe there's a solution. And so at the end of the day, the last thing you really got to ask yourself is, can you do this? And is this something you can see yourself doing well in? And so I can't answer that for you. That's something you got to answer for yourself. That's something that myself, my wife, and our agents, we had to answer. And part of that is because we know in this type of industry, you're in financial services, there's many other different services and products that you offer and possibly can make you more money. Possibly it doesn't require as much time. And so you have to really look at this and see, where does this fit in within your practice? Once you understand where all of those answers, the need, the solution, and can you do it, and if it's worth your time, then marketing it becomes very, very simple, in my opinion. And so that's what we did. And so I want to lead in with that because I want you to think about this in that respect. And if you understand that marketing it is no different than the way you would develop your own market with your own business, the way you currently do it. And so when you think about marketing HIFE College Planning, you know, one of the things you got to do is first develop a prospect list. Well, again, going back to those three questions, if you don't think there's a need, you don't think there's a solution, and you don't think you can do it, it's very difficult to develop a prospect list. Hence why I said you got to make sure that you have to find a way to address those three questions. And if they're yes, then it's very simple to do a prospect list. And so when you hear about prospect lists, it's no different than the way you would do it for WFG or WSP. You look at your prospect list. One of the things that I know and I've learned before is you want to quantify your list. And you want to figure out who do you know? Everybody, right? Anybody and everybody that you know. Try to identify 100 names list. And this is stuff that you already know. The challenge that I see, and, you know, I've had this conversation. I was in an office yesterday. I've been in offices probably the last 10 days. And I always get these questions, well, who do we talk to? You know, you talk to anyone that has kids, but what I see is so many new consultants, they get certified, and for whatever reason, they never think about developing a prospect list. Or maybe they're not specifically trained by an MD or a trainer to do a list with them for college planning. And so you, just like you would do it in your own practice, do it with college planning. Use your 8 pointers. Some of you may know the 8 pointers, right? The 8 pointers is, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if I missed anything, you got to be 25 and above, married, children, right? Dissatisfied, ambitious, coachable, good income, household, own a home. I think that's all 8, right? If I missed something, please let me know. So you do the same thing, quantify your list, you know, figure out who qualifies, and it's not really who qualifies, but you're trying to narrow down really what's a good market. Next thing you want to do is take it down from 100 to 25, but take it down to 25 that have children. And maybe if they don't have children, it's okay. Maybe they know someone that has children. Keep them on that list. Again, anyone that has a child, doesn't matter if they're 2 months of age, Doesn't even matter if they're like 21 years of age. You should still talk to them. It may be what you use or what you say may not be as in-depth as it would be for an 8th grader, 9th grader, but the need still exists for college or college planning. So again, develop your prospect list, narrow it down to the top 25. Second way you can develop or market the program, if you've been in the business for some time, or even if you haven't, revisit your existing prospect list. A lot of us, we have a list that we started with, and maybe it's been some time since you revisited. I know when I implemented college planning 6 years ago, I started saying, who do I know? And a lot of it was going back to my original list and seeing when they were on my list originally, they didn't have kids. Now they have kids, or they weren't married, and now they are married and are thinking about having a family. So revisit your list. Don't exclude or count anybody out. And again, the person that may be on that list may not have children, but they know people that have children, like their brothers or sisters that they're concerned for. So revisit your existing list. Identify, again, as I mentioned, who on that list has children or know people that have children. Those without, inquire if they know someone that has children, someone that needs assistance. One thing I find to be very consistent when I talk about college planning, everyone that I mentioned about college planning and the need to do it and how we go about doing it, even if they don't have kids, they always know someone that could benefit from the information. And it may not be a direct relative. It could be a friend. It could be someone they just know as an acquaintance. A lot of people, if they know that there's good information, helpful information, they're willing to pass it along. So just keep that in mind as you're revisiting your list or you're making a list. You also want to let your current prospects know you've added an additional service to your practice. Some of you that are in this industry, financial services, you have other businesses or you have another practice that you have already existing clients. When I got involved in financial services, I also was in mortgage banking. I had a large clientele base in mortgage banking that I went back to and that I revisited and I shared with them. I added something new to my practice. I'm no longer just doing mortgages or real estate. I'm doing financial planning. And so if you're in that type of environment where you have clients, it could be any type of clients. If you're a hairstylist, you have clients. If you are a CPA, you have clients. There's so many different professions that if you're a dentist, you have clients. You just let them know that you've got involved and you added something to your practice that you believe is going to add value to your existing clients. And what that is college planning. And so it's just a matter of how you approach it. And so what I always use, and I've said this time and time again, and you heard me say it earlier, the easiest way to approach and what I use most frequent is a newsletter to let people know I've added something to my practice because I know and I recognize not only is there value here, but many of my clients that have kids or looking to have kids needs this. And so I wanted to make sure I could be of service to my clients. So I added college planning and then I share with them the newsletter. I don't go into detail what we do. I just give information. Okay. Third, visit your existing team. Some of you have team members. If you're not fortunate enough that you don't have team members just yet, it's okay too. But for those of you that have a team, talk to your old team members. Sometimes you may have brought someone in the business, things didn't quite work out. They had some discouragement, maybe timing of things. Go back and revisit them. Share with them that you are now added another service to your practice. It's college planning. And maybe that can bring them back to the business or get re-engaged. I've heard many of times as I visited offices, some of the associates that are involved, they got involved just because they want to do college planning, or they came back to the business because of college planning. And again, there's various reasons why people leave, why people don't do things, but it goes back to those three questions. Do you recognize there's a need? Do you recognize there's a solution? And do you recognize, can you do it? And with college planning, I think everybody believes there's a need. They see what Heartland's doing, so they know there's a solution. And then they look at, can they do it? You don't have to be licensed to do this. You just got to go through a certification course that is fairly simple to pass. And you don't have to be the best presenter. You can leverage people like myself, other CPP consultants. You can utilize our videos. So go back to your team. Let them know that you've added college planning to your practice. Encourage them to possibly participate to become a consultant. Ask them if they have anyone that they know that is in need of college planning. a lot of the reason why people have a hard time marketing college planning, in my opinion, is they don't ask. They just don't simply ask, do you know of anyone that has children? Do you know of anyone that's worried about their kids' education? Do you know anyone that's worried about their future, their children's future, the choices they're going to make, how they're going to pay for it, how they're going to prepare, how they're going to plan? They don't ask. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure why they don't ask, but get in the habit of asking people, are they worried about their kids' future? How are they going to go about paying for it? How are they going to go about paying for or planning for it? And you'll see very distinctively that the need exists. And there are a lot of people trying to find ways to do it better. Because right now, the way it isn't working in our system, in the system of things that we're in terms of our education at this state. So ask people, do they know of anyone? Okay. Number 4, look at your existing clientele base, right? You want to look at that as well. Your existing clientele base, that could be, any of the clients that you've had in the last year or 2 years. If you're brand new and you only have like a handful of clients, it's okay to go back to them, even if you've just written the business. Just let them know that, hey, I don't just do financial planning. I do college planning as well. And that's one of the biggest things to focus in on, because it's one of the most easiest things to talk about, because every parent I talk to, they're concerned with their kids' education. So go back to your existing clientele base. During your annual reviews, again, ask them, do they know of anyone that has children that's worried about their future, their education? Are they worried about how they're going to prepare for it, plan for it, pay for it? If the answer is yes, then here's some information. Here's a scholar's newsletter that I think would help them start moving in the right direction. Okay. Again, you're hearing me say this consistently. I believe you may have lost me. I don't know. Can you just let me know in the chat line if you could still hear me? Or if you could, if you could write in the chat line, because I got a text that some people can't hear me. So if you can, just write in the chat line that you can. Okay. If you can't hear me, then something happened on your side. I apologize. But moving forward, so you're going to hear me keep saying the Scholars Newsletter, and I'm saying that because it's the most informative piece that we have. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use the other pieces, but what happens is when you lead in with information first, it brings down the barriers of them feeling like they're trying to be sold something. So every piece of literature we have is designed for a certain reason. It's built off one after the other, but it's just a way you go about using information and how you actually share that type of information. Okay. So again, talk to your existing clientele base. Another thing you want to do is possibly, before I move forward, I pulled this quote, and again, I apologize because it's from an older version of your System Builder book. I believe so. This is version 4. It says a personal prospect list is where it all begins. You are one prospect list away from explosion. That's from your System Builder book. And I completely agree with that. You're one list from an explosion. See, what we do is a service-oriented type of product, or if you want to call it that. We provide a service. And for that service to work well, is you got to be in front of people. And so our market is people. And to develop a market, you got to have a list. And so you got to find a way to get in front of these people. And so look at your list, identify who they are, revisit that, keep adding to it. One of the things you never, ever, ever want to do is think you're done with your list. Always keep refining, keep adding, and keep contacting, because it may not be today is a good time, but it may be tomorrow. You just got to catch them at the right time. See, now, if you're the type that can do good follow-up, it's only inevitable that you catch them at the right time, okay? So, number 5 way to market the program, you can do events. Events are great, especially if you're talking about doing outreach programs, participating in, last night I'm in Dallas and we did a college planning meeting. That's an event. It was a very exciting time for us. We had over 75 guests, roughly about 100 plus in associates. It was a jam-packed house. It was very exciting. So, you can do monthly college planning meetings. I'll say this much. If I happen to be in your area and I can fit within my schedule, I'll do what I can to try to coordinate it, but I can't promise all the time. But there are some cases, depending on my schedule, I may be able to tie in through a webinar to assist you initially. So that's something we can look to entertain. If not myself, Constance or Bob, they can do the same thing. So host monthly college planning meetings. The thing that I see with most consultants, and it's not all of them, but a good amount of them, there's no consistency. If you're going to do an event, run a regular event so that as you're building your organization, you have new team members getting certified and they're out there doing a 6-page flip chart and they're gaining interest. You got to have a date set for them to bring people to a meeting so that they can keep going back to that. And it doesn't have to be like every week, every 2 weeks. Once a month is a good time because why? It gives a chance for your new associates to get certified, get things cranking up, and getting them to invite to this event once a month. And the great thing when it's once a month, it creates some sense of urgency that, depending where they're at academically in their high school life, they can't wait till the next month to attend. So, once a month, I think is great. So consider doing events. Look to do college nights at libraries. Libraries is a great way to get into the community. The challenge I'll tell you is this. It's not going to be that easy for you to get into a library system without you doing some work. What do I mean by that? You can't just go there expecting that they're going to agree to have you be there. You got to do some legwork. You got to build some relationship with the librarian. Sometimes the people that are above her. And you may even have to talk to the district that runs the libraries to get an approval. And so you got to be willing to go through that process. Will I say it's worth it? Initially, I'll be honest with you, it will never feel like it's worth it because it's a lot of work. But then when you start getting attendance and you start seeing people gain interest, then all of a sudden you feel as if it's worth it. Sometimes things take much longer for people to see the value. And so people give in early. So just know if you try to do events like college nights at libraries, it's not going to be an easy process. Even partnering up with our local high school, it's not an easy thing to do unless if you have a good relationship with counselors, the principals. I always say this when I talk to educators, I say you'd be an ideal person to be a college consultant because you already have relationships with students, with educators, and they know more than anyone else that there is an extreme need for college planning and to do it right. And so if I'm one of your associates, or if I'm an associate, I'm looking for educators because those are the type of people I want to bring into our system, have them be members with us because they're the people that are going to get me connected to local high school. So something to think about, but understand events is not an easy task to do. Build relationships with associations. I'm involved with a lot of different youth associations and I sponsor a lot of different events and I do a lot of outreach or I could do a lot of contribution. Anytime you think about doing events other than CPMs, your college planning meetings, think of it as cost involved. There will be some cost. Are you ready to shoulder that cost? If the answer is no, then what you do is you partner up with others that are willing to buy into this and willing to share in the cost, but at the same time, share in the success. So understand when you're involved in events, it's going to cost you some money. You can look at churches. Churches is a great way, or other religious affiliations where they congregate. They're always about helping the congregation, their members, or they want to give back to the people that attend their churches or their religious organizations. So reach out to community leaders in those organizations and talk to them about doing outreach, helping the youth in your own church. And more times than not, they're going to be open. But again, part of that is how you present. You can't go in saying, hey, I want to do a presentation tomorrow, program or a cost of a program is $2,500. Give information first, let them review information. Hence why I keep saying the newsletter, build that up till they feel a little bit more comfortable with you and you're not just trying to sell a bunch of stuff to their members and then talk about presentations later on. So it's going to take some time. You can do clubs as well. You do the same thing. So there's different ways you can do events. Number 6, you can do sponsorships. Sponsorships includes like college fairs. I'll be in Columbus next week. I just found out yesterday. Will we participate? Some of you know like Discover, the credit card company. They're doing a college fair that I did not know until yesterday. That the organization that we're working with, the consultants there, they've been invited to be part of that. So you can be part of college fairs. It's a great way to get in front of students. Challenge I see with that is you're only getting in front of mainly students. So the students got to be able to communicate what they're hearing from you, getting it back to the parents. But it's a good way to make a name for yourself, get your name out there. You can do college nights at high school. Many different high schools have college nights. Usually it happens in the fall. Some high schools even do after school during summer programs where they help students do college preparation. Get involved. Figure out how you can be a part of that. I was talking to one of the consultants when I was in Burlingame, and they're very involved in their daughter's activities for college in high school. And so they participate in all the activities that revolves around college, because he's also a college consultant, also financial professional, and wants to understand what's being communicated. And many of times they find information that's being communicated isn't 100% accurate. Well, that gives you an opportunity, if you're involved in those things, whether you're directly representing Heartland or not, or you're just representing yourself as a parent, gives you an opportunity to strike a conversation and share what you know that Heartland does and how we better prepare students. You can do newspaper advertisement, as it was asked earlier. Can you advertise? The answer is yes, you can. But I'll say again, the last two, 5 and 6, those things cost money. Are you in a position to invest that type of money? Advertisement is not a cheap form of getting the word out. Matter of fact, it'll cost you much more, in my opinion, with less results. You'll put out a lot of information, or you'll have an advertisement, it'll reach a lot of people, but in terms of how many people get in contact with you, be very low. So it may not be worth, or it may not be worth the investment. So you have to really analyze that. To me, I think if you're going to do some type of advertisement, I would recommend like inside associations, because it's a smaller knit community. Churches, it's a smaller knit community. And at least within those organizations, there's people that can help enforce or reiterate information that's being shared in their newsletters. When you do newspaper advertisement, you're going through a newspaper company. It's out for everybody. Sometimes people read it. A lot of times they don't. So you got to look at that. Whatever you do in terms of advertisement, you got to get it approved from the sponsorship team. If there's something that you have in mind, or you want to use any of our literature, but you don't want all of it, like you just want bits and pieces, you put it together and we'll approve it. We just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to make sure everything is on the up and up. We're not over-promising, over-committing, but we can do that as well. Again, sponsorship to youth group associations. You can do radio, TV advertisement. I've done that for years ago. That worked out very great for us. I created a TV show. So you can do all sorts of things. Whatever you do, especially if you're using the Heartland name, be sure that you're getting approval prior to doing it. I can't stress that enough. If you're going to do something and you're going to use Heartland's name, you better make sure that you have approval, okay? So you can do all these things. Now, what I will tell you is this. All these things that we're talking about here, 5 and 6, the reason why I list them as 5 and 6, the last two, is because that, in my opinion, is the hardest way to market the program. But people think it's the easiest way. They think they can captivate more people. You can cast a wider net. The answer is yes, you'll cast a wider net, but that doesn't mean you'll catch a lot more. It's more difficult. I mean, you can cast a wide net into the ocean, but you cast it in the wrong place, you can come up empty. So this is why I believe, I want to backtrack just for a moment. The best way to market the program, in my opinion, is going to be one of these 4 ways. Initially. Now, once you build some traction and people recognize you and they see the validity of your program and the value you bring to your community and how you're helping these students out, then I believe you can move on to 5 and 6, and it'll be much more effective for you. Again, no matter what you do, all events, advertisements, sponsorships, they have to be approved by the sponsorship team. You typically have to request for approval 21 days prior to the date of event or prior to that advertisement being released. The way you do that is there's a form called your HIFE Sponsorship Advertisement Request Form. All you need to do is go to hifeportal.org, go on Forms and Link. It's located on the right side, both for Canada and the US. On the right side, click on Sponsorship. The link will say HIFE Sponsorship Advertisement Request Form. Fill it out. Let the institute know, the sponsorship team know what you're trying to do. They'll review the information. If there's anything else needed, they'll get in contact with you directly. Okay? So now that you understand how you go out and market the program, or in terms of who your market is and how you develop the market, the next thing is, how do you approach and make initial contact? And so I find that people, they either fail, and I don't want to say fail, they either miss out or don't focus on developing the prospect list. But even if they do that part, the other area I see that they fail in or miss out on is it's how they go about approaching or making initial contact. And again, this is no different than what you guys already know. And so I've had this conversation, and the reason why I want to talk about marketing today is because I've had this conversation several times over the last 10 days with different offices, with different consultants. And, I always go back to sharing with them, you really know how to develop a market, and you really know how to contact them. You've been trained on it time and time again in your BPMs, in your trainings, in the conventions, in your Super Saturdays, but you just may not see how it's applicable to Heartland in our college planning program. You got to recognize the things that you're learning in your business, they're principles. You take those principles and apply it here, you should be able to turn out the same type of results. So when you see this information, it should be familiar to you. You know how you make contact? You drop by, you stop by. It's very simple. You go by people say hello, whether it's a new prospect, existing team member, existing client, you drop by and stop by. And that doesn't mean you have to overstay your welcome, doesn't mean you have to do an hour presentation. A lot of it is just saying, hey, look, I thought about you. I was in the area. I thought about you because I remember you had children. And I happened to come across an article that our nonprofit organization puts out every single month. And I thought I believed you could benefit from the information. So I wanted to make sure that you had this. And that's all it is. And then you keep doing that. And then what you do is you ask them, we put out this type of information every month. Would you mind if I send this to you? Because there's so much information. And some of this may not apply to you today because your kids are younger, but it will apply to you in the future. And so I just want to make sure you're better prepared, because I know as a parent, just like you and I are, we're very busy in our daily lives. It's hard to do all this research on our own. So if I can help in that way, give you information, give you the information that you need, rather than bombard you with a bunch of information that's not really needed for you, would you mind if I give you out a newsletter every single month, or include you in our newsletter as we distribute it every month? Most of the parents say yes, that I've had that. It's occasionally one person will say no to me, but it's very rare they say, no, I don't want information about college and how it can help my kids. Everyone that I've talked to, I think in the last 6 years, I've had maybe 2 or 3 families say no. And it didn't really mean no, because when I followed up later on, they said yes. So it's just circumstances, or you caught them at a bad time. Another way to approach them, call to invite or set an appointment. And this stuff you already know. You invite them to the office to do a CPM, college planning meeting, or better yet, do a home CPM. There's an associate, a consultant, a senior consultant out in Northern California. They do a lot of home college planning meetings. And I find that to be phenomenal, because that's something you learn in your system. You learn how to do home BPMs. Well, instead of an actual BPM, do a college planning meeting. It's a little bit down to earth, more of a home setting, so people don't feel so, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't feel like it's a sales type of presentation where they got to dress up, look the part. I mean, it's very warm and welcoming when it's at a home. And the great thing is, it's a lot easier to bring people to a home than to an office. So you may want to consider doing home CPMs, schedule an appointment with them, let them know it will be short, drop off the newsletter, maybe highlight some bits and pieces on that 6-page presentation. Or for me, I share this with all the consultants. I'll share it with all you here today. When I do my drop by, stop by, or it's a short appointment where I know I'm not staying more than 10, 20 minutes, I use the one page that says HIFE College Planning Solution. That is my go-to page at any given time. When I want to talk about what we do, how we do it, and why I believe we're successful in doing it, I show them the solution page. And I show them why I believe that works, and why, or what's happening with students and how they go through college. In my opinion, they go through it backwards. When you look at our solution, they start with an end and then move backwards. So those are things that I look at. You can utilize as well, or you can do email, or you can mail stuff. You can mail literature. You can email them. If you're going to email them, possibly consider utilizing one of the tools we have, HIFE Go. If you want more information, send an email to HIFE CPP. They'll share with you what that is. Email the newsletter. Email them the introductory videos. We have 2 of them. You can even send them invitation to the national live webinars. Any of the national live webinars or coaches webinars that we've ever conducted, and it's only for those webinars specifically, you can send that to any prospective family. Now, if it's for training, that's for consultant use only. It's all internal. So anything that's labeled as national live webinar, anything labeled as coaches webinar, that's for the general public. You're more than welcome to send that out to clients for them to review. As we host those every month, send the invitation, okay? Number 4, you can also learn from others. Participate in these types of conference calls or training calls. Learn what other people are saying, what they're doing. Match up with other consultants that are experienced. We have what we call a mentor program. You can match up with any of the other consultants that are on that list. You go to www.wfgagents.org, click on mentor program, find a mentor. They don't have to necessarily be in your state, but it'd be more helpful if they are. But a lot of the mentors that we have that have volunteered their time, they're open to sharing with you their ideas, their experiences, so that you can be better and so that you can go on and help others. So match up with people. Bottom line, you got to make contact. That's the bottom line. Now, when you look at the 4 ways of contacting people, you'll notice number 1 and number 2 is listed as number 1 and number 2 because that is, in my opinion, the surefire way of the best contact you can make is getting in front of them, right? So try to do it that way. This is a good way for you to understand how to market the program. And all of this, in my opinion, you should already know. The thing is, I see so many consultants get certified and the trainer or the MD or whomever brought them in the business didn't do this with them on the college planning side. I find if you do this with them on the college planning side, help them identify who their prospect list is for college planning, make contact with them, call together, drop by together, they're going to get better results. If anything, more effective in marketing the program. So in terms of what you can use, sample brochures, there's a green one and a blue one. And so I've said this in my live classes. I use both, again, but I always start out with a newsletter to show that there's information, build up that idea that there is a need. There's a lot of stuff that they need to know. And then I come back and I follow up with like a green brochure, then a blue brochure. In Canada, it's a little bit different, but in the US is what we do. So the green one is my intro piece. The blue one is my services piece. And if you're familiar with boxing, they have what they call like a 1-2 combination. And this is what I look to use. It's like my 1-2 combination. It's a way for me to constantly get in front of them over a 2, 3, 4 period time. See, I find the more often I can get in front of them, the easier it is for me to invite them to a CPM or get an appointment. But as I'm getting in front of them, people always want literature. The problem is when you leave literature, if you don't direct them on what to look at, they just take it because they're asking for it, because that's what they think they should do, but they never read it. And so when I use a green brochure, the intro brochure, I tell them simply, I said, look, this information I want you to look at, pay close attention. It talks about, in the intro brochure, it talks about, the Heartland difference. And I want you to know why I think there's a need for our program. So it shares with you the need for college planning, but really what makes us different. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about going out there, helping my clients that have kids, is because of Heartland difference. We have educators that work with our students that are from higher education and have been doing this for years, and they're very good at doing it. And so I see that my clients, they need this type of guidance. And so that's what I share with them on the intro. And so I highlight that piece. And then when I come back and I follow up, in the blue brochure, I call it the services brochure, I highlight who we are. And so they kind of get an idea of the difference of why we're different. We have coaches. So I highlight who we are, and I highlight the pathway to success. The pathway to success is what helps us engage in planning with the students. We identify what their skills are, their interests, their work values. And by all means, it doesn't mean that's what they should be doing or they'll be good at doing, but it gives us a starting point on where our coaches can give them proper guidance looking at this type of information. Excuse me. And so I'm highlighting that because, again, I know from experience, if anyone ever hands me a brochure, just like many of you, you would probably agree, you don't read it or you put it aside. Think about the conventions you've gone to or the meetings you've gone to in the past. You pick up a literature, you put it in your bag. When do you go back and read it? Some, if you're very good, you go back after the meeting and you review it. But a lot of us, just average person, it stays in that plastic bag or in our portfolio until we happen to come across it 2, 3, 4 months down the road. Oh, let me read this. Part of that is because it wasn't told to us. Like if someone tells me, hey, you got to read this part, then I'm a little bit more intrigued to look at information. So keep that in mind when you're handing out information. Highlight information they should pay attention to. So I use these two. Again, the other part that I use a newsletter. I find the newsletter one of the most powerful pieces you can give because why? It doesn't tell someone or I should say, it indirectly tells them that there's a need for college planning and that they need to consider doing something. Because when they start reading the information, their mind is going to start opening up and saying, gosh, I think I need to consider doing this, or I'm not doing this. Should I do this? A lot of things start moving, the bolts, the cogs, they start turning, and people start thinking, gosh, I think I got to do better preparation. So now it keeps them open to the idea of either attending a college planning workshop or sitting down with you to get more information. So utilize the information, but when you do, any literature we have, point them in the right direction. That's the key thing. Point them in the right direction. And so really what I want to do is take the time to go ahead and conclude the webinar because we have about 10 minutes. If there are any questions regarding any information that I shared with you or something that wasn't quite clear, now's a good time to get your questions answered. So hopefully this was beneficial to you, helps you see things from a different perspective. By all means, I don't think there's one way to market, one way to contact. I just think that you need to understand there's multitudes of different ways to develop your market, make contact. Ultimately, that's only going to work for you if you yourself decide to get out there and open your mouth. That's the only way it's going to work. And all we can do is give you some guidance on things to say, how to say things, but you got to be able to reach out to us. So I'm going to go ahead and open up for question and answers as we have about 10 minutes left. For those of you that have questions, I prefer that you unmute yourself and to ask your questions. If you want to write in the chat line, feel free to do so. Okay.
Hey, Carl, this is Jack. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you, Jack?
Hey, pretty good. I just want to add to what you just mentioned earlier, as far as getting in front of the schools and parents, and thanks for sharing that message. I mean, like I said, like you mentioned earlier, my daughter's in the program, but more importantly, as far as getting involved with the school, and I'm the person that you mentioned about as far as getting involved with the school, is that I want to know what my daughter's school, what the counselor is doing, what the school is doing with college planning. And that's how I'm going to be marketing the HIFE difference, because as a consultant, as a parent, is my concern is what my daughter is going to do in her high school and how are they going to help her, even though she's in the CCEPP program. But I'm there to really educate the other parents that there are other ways to help the kids other than what the school counselor is doing. So what I've done is, initially, you and I actually visited the school, but then, the school has different ideas of, it's a new school, right? There's different idea, different direction they're going. And I was just looking for other ways to get in to talk to more parents. So then I find out that there is a volunteer group, right? The volunteer parents group that the school need help. So I basically start volunteering and get involved in different part of the school's volunteer program. And turns out that they do have a college prep group for parents to help the counselors on college prep program. And so start volunteering there, and to the point where I find out that the school has a blog that actually share information among parents. So I got approval from Bob from Holland to share the newsletters in the blog. So now the school approved it. Every single month, the newsletter comes out. I'm able to share a copy of it in the blog. So about 300 parents is in the blog that they get to receive a copy of the newsletter. And same thing as last month when we had the FASTA workshop, same thing. I was able to share that flyer, and at least that gets more parents to know that I'm in this business, also share with college planning. And so then at least if not now, later on, some parents will come, will come and approach me, and that's I've been able to, get parents to come talk to me that way.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and Jack is right. He's a person I referenced it earlier as I shared. What I will tell you when you do that, and Jack will attest to this, and anyone else that's tried this, it takes time. It's not something that happens overnight, and so you got to be really patient. But what I will say is this: I always compare it to some of you are familiar with like Medicare, and like a lot of times when people turn 65, and the reason I'm comparing to that is when people turn 65, they look at Medicare, and one of the first companies they think of is AARP. And you got to understand why that is. AARP is so great at branding themselves as like Medicare. Even though Medicare isn't AARP, people just associate with that because they start branding you and start sending you information as early in your mid-40s. So they do that for over 20 years to you. So by the time you're eligible, the first company you think about, Oh, AARP, let me go with them. Well, you gotta have the same kind of thinking where as your clients have children or they plan to have kids, you want to keep just relaying college information, so that every time they look at their son, their daughter, the first thing they think about Jack Hartland College, Jack Hartland College. I mean, they already know you're the person that if there's a question about college, how they prepare for it, you're the person they go to. But how do you condition them to automatically think of you? Well, that's not you keep saying, come to a meeting, let me sit down with you. That's you providing information. That's you being a resource. And the great thing is this, you never actually have to do the research and looking at all the information. You just leverage Heartland. We do that for you. But it makes you look like the good guy because why? You're the one showing that information to them. So thank you, Jack, for sharing. Let me answer a couple questions that are on the chat line. One of the questions that came up for approved ads, can this be used by all team members or does it have to be personalized? What you need to do is get an approval from the Institute. We need to make sure that if you're going to do an advertisement, we know which consultant it's going to. Part of that is because if the family or whomever is interested contacts the Institute directly, we need to know the actual point of contact to give it back to. And what we don't want to do is see where people are not actual consultants, but they're associates of WFG using that ad to gain business. So in essence, if you're going to do an ad, be sure, number one, you are a consultant. All those that are using it are a consultant as well. And we have all that information, okay? Hopefully that answers. Another question, do HIFE consultants need to be recertified every 2 years? The answer is they need to actually go through recertification every year. Part of the recertification process, when you signed up and you filled out your agreement, it's listed there very distinctively, very clear, that you have 2 ways to recertify. You either do the minimum 2 enrollments every single year in a 12-month period from the time you pass, 2 enrollments, and we will waive your recertification requirements and the fee. If you do not do 2 enrollments within a 12-month period, you'll be required to go through the recertification process, which means the tutorials, the exams, and pay a renewal fee of $50. That's every 12 months. Okay. Some other questions that came through the chat line, I'm going to try to answer a lot of this. Some of you are in Canada, so one of the questions that came up is that there are some concerns about the costs being in US dollars. Is there any discount? The answer is no. We priced that out because at $18.95, it converts over to about $2,400 to Canadian dollars. So technically, in terms of your cost in Canada, because they're doing it based on US dollars, it's much less than what the US individuals have to pay. And so there isn't any discount. You can look to offer them the payment option plans, but there aren't any discounts. One of the things I can share with you is if cost is a concern, if $1,900 is a concern, then there's a bigger issue at stake. The issue at stake is they may not be able to afford the real cost of college. Hence why you need to go back and talk to them about doing an assessment, seeing where they are financially. So that will open the doors for you to do your PFS, PFA, your needs analysis, whichever, because any family that can't afford the cost of enrollment, I'm not really concerned about that. What I'm more concerned about is when the time comes, are they prepared for the tuition costs that they're about to incur? If they can't really afford that. So I'm more concerned on the financial side. So something to think about, but there isn't any discount. In Canada, this has been asked before, are there any type of invitation pieces that you can use? I'm in the process of taking the US versions that we have that people use to convert that for Canada. I apologize, it was supposed to be released last week, but I've been on travel the last 10 days. I go back on travel in 3 days here. I will try my very best to get it available to you early part of next week. So if you're in Canada, what we're going to do is utilize the invitational flyers or the invitational pieces that we have for US and convert that for Canada. If you don't mind giving me until mid next week to get that done, I'll work my best to get that done for you no later than next week. So if you give me until next week, you'll have that ready. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to answer something. I'm going to answer a couple more questions. We have to conclude today's webinar. One of the questions asked is, there's another college planning program in your neighborhood. Is it a good idea for you to go and prospect. Be cautious. And I say this because think about it. If your competitor knew you're in the area doing college planning meeting, would you want them coming to your CPM, your college planning night, that you worked hard, your associates work hard to bring guests so that they can prospect your guests? It's just not good business. Now, if you go there with the intention to learn what they're doing and you happen to build relationships, then maybe you could bring it up later on. That's just my own personal opinion. Now, I've gone and I've sat through many different companies, college planning workshops or meetings, but I didn't go there with the intention to prospect those families and share them with what we do. I went there to understand, okay, that's what they do. I'm glad where I'm at. I know exactly what we do. I know exactly how to talk to other families that are approached by this company in my community. So I know how to better address it when they say, oh, have you heard of this company? They say they do this, this, and this. I say, great, they do. However, we also do this, this, and this, or whatever it may be. But I don't go in with the intention of trying to prospect, and I would never suggest that. Ultimately, that is a personal choice, up to you. I don't think it's good for business, in my opinion. Is there a cost for using HIFE Go? The answer is yes. Excuse me. The answer is yes. There is a cost. I don't know if Bob is on the call because I think he's on travel still, but the cost for HIFE Go, don't hold me to this. At one time it was $40. I think it's now down to $25 to $40 a month. What we can do, if you want more information about HIFE Go, send an email, and I'll write this in the chat line. Send an email to HIFE@hife-usa.org and just request for the HIFE Go information, and we'll send you some information regarding HIFE Go. Okay, it's $30 a month. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate it. $30 a month. Let's see here. For Canada, we talked about an intro video. The intro video, I'll go ahead and before I say yes, Gwenda, let me talk with the Institute on Tuesday and see if we can make the ones for the US available for Canada. The one I did is very general, so it talks about the need for college planning, talks about the solution, so we may be able to make that available for Canada, okay? But I'll double check. If there's more than one student in the family, what's the cost for joining the program? The cost is per student. The cost of enrollment is per student. So it's $24.95 per student in US, $18.95 in Canada per student, okay? Unfortunately, the way the system is set up with our accounting, because we're based in US, it is in US dollars. There isn't the best way I can explain it, we haven't found a good way for accounting to utilize in Canadian dollars. That's part because if we take it in Canadian dollars, it still got to convert over to US dollars. So that's more of an accounting thing that you got to ask. If Bob was on the call, he can address that more directly, but that's something you can inquire from the Institute directly. You can send them an email at info@hifa-usa.org. Yes, the introduction videos, they are on YouTube. If you don't know the actual YouTube address, you can't find it. You can't search for it because it's in a private channel. So you have to know the exact web address to be able to access the YouTube introductory videos. You know, the brochures you can print out, and you can also order them. If you print them out, it's up to you. I always recommend if you're going to give something of professional quality. We do have an approved vendor. It's our only official vendor for HIFE marketing materials. If you needed to order business cards, brochures, banners, anything, you can go to hifemerchandise.com. Okay. Please clarify the cost for each student to enroll. The cost of enrollment is $24.95 per student in the US. That is $2,495. The cost for Canada per student is $1,895. If you need more information about the cost, if you've gone through the certification course and you've passed, all this information would be given to you in your welcome email. What we encourage you to do is go through the information that you received in your welcome email. A lot of the questions that you're asking is in your welcome email. Just take the time to review it. In any case, if you can't find it, please utilize our HIFA College Planning team. Send your inquiries to HIFA-CPP@hifa-usa.org, and they can either answer your questions directly as well as direct you where you can find information in the future. Okay. I do need to conclude the call for today. We're a little bit over time. I want to appreciate everybody for participating. This has been recorded and will be on the team site mid next week to late next week. So if you needed to actually review the information, feel free to view it at any time when it's on the team site. Okay. If you need information regarding installment payments, send an email to HIFA CPP and we will send you the information. It's much easier so you can have it for your own reference. Okay. There is a renewal fee. What you want to do, so it's easy for everyone, send an email to HIFA CPP and we'll give you a copy of the breakdown of payment, the payment option plans, whether you're in Canada or US. You can also find this on the team site at hifaportal.org. You're going to need your HIFA credentials, which is your HIFA email and password. All you need to do is look for the enrollment form. It's under consultant documents. You download the enrollment form. It's on the very last page called the payment submittal form and has a breakdown of all the payments and what's available. Okay. Again, I do have to conclude the call because we're over. I appreciate everybody for taking the time to be here. We look forward to talking to Canada in about a week or so. Actually, yeah, next week. So if you're a Canadian consultant, our next webinar for you is the first Friday in November. So we look forward to talking with you all. Again, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. For all of you that are traveling to the G schools, right? Be safe in your travels. Make sure you take a lot of notes. Make sure you go to those events ready to win and ready to come out to take action. So have a great time at your G schools for those that are going. Take care. Have a good afternoon. Thanks.